Hi there, Prairie Plant Girl here. We're out today enjoying another beautiful sunny day. Definitely below zero, below freezing out there, but in here it's around 10 degrees Celsius, which is absolutely fabulous. So I'm gonna take advantage of that and do some planting. So I'm at about 11 weeks before my average last frost date here. That means it's time for me to get really into my planting phase of late winter. So I have several things that need to be planted this week. Some I'm not going to be able to do today and they might get bumped out to next week, but let me grab my calendar. So on my list of things that I want to try and get planted this week for vegetables is celery, and I was planning on starting my sweet peppers this week. Now I have kind of a busy week scheduled, so I'm not sure I'm going to get the sweet peppers done, but I'm definitely going to get the celery done today because it really needs that extra time and I want to get them started. The peppers, if they're a little bit smaller going out, that won't be a huge deal for me. And then my flowers, I want to get my petunias planted. They just sit, they take so long to actually grow into usable plants that you really need to get them started early. I have lots of videos about petunia planting, so I'll try and link one or two for you because I think a lot of people have trouble with petunias. And I've been growing them for years, and I think you just need to follow a few kind of basic steps, and I'll give you some links if you're having trouble growing petunias or you're not sure if your petunias are developing like they should. I'll put some videos that should help you with that. I also get my flowering cabbage going. I probably could have started this a few weeks sooner, but they're on the list for this week, so we'll get those going. I want to try delphiniums. I've never grown them from seed before. I have a few dahlias. I've also never grown dahlias from seed before, so I'm going to try those from seed this year. And I have my ranunculus corms that need to come out and get soaked and started. That won't happen today. I just don't have time for that, but I will try to bring you along for that process when I get to it. It is a little bit involved, so I'll try and get a video out for that later in the week. And then I have these potatoes here. And I'll have to look back. I don't have my calendar of when I actually planted things. Yeah, I have another calendar for that. And it will say when I set these out to sprout. But I have these couple of little potatoes here with some pretty good sprouts on them. So these have just been sitting in my grow room in a nice bright spot, but not in direct sunlight, not direct light, and they have really nice sprouts, and I'm just going to start them in some larger pots just to kind of get them going a little bit early. They'll be inside just in pots, and eventually they'll make their way out here to the greenhouse once it has warmed up a little bit, but they'll probably be in the house for about a month and then they'll come out here. We'll see. I'm new to this greenhouse thing, but I want to get them started to just get a little bit earlier. You can start them up in smaller pots and then plant them into larger pots or in the ground, and they'll just have that little bit of an extra jump start. So that's what I'm going to do with these. So let's get the seed trays going, get the seeds started, and try and get through all this before I need to actually go and take my daughter back home. My kids have been home this week. It's been wonderful, home from university, but it's time to take them back to where they spend most of their days, and my son's on the road right now and I need to take my daughter back in a little while. So time to get moving here. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is just the easiest, fastest thing to do is I'm going to try and get these potatoes just in some soil. There's very little to it. I just have this left over. It's a combination of my kind of homemade seed starting mix and some purchased potting soil. And it's just been sitting out here in the greenhouse. I actually have had this extra dome sitting on top of it, and it's been sitting on a heat mat, just trying to thaw it out a little bit. You can see Buster back there enjoying this beautiful day out in the garden there. I'm just going to very quickly, there's not much to this. I'm just taking a pot about this size. You could go even smaller. I've started them in pots around this size before, but I thought just a little bit bigger just gives them a little more room to spread their roots, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put just soil in the bottom of the pot, so hopefully you can kind of see that level there. So not quite halfway up the pot. And I'm just going to take the potato, and the sprouts are up here, so I'm just going to set it in there like that and just cover it over. So I'll just barely cover over that sprout for now. So just to the point where you can't see the sprout anymore. And as it comes up higher, I'll put more soil on later on. But for now, that's all it's going to be. And then these pots have holes in the bottom, so I've just grabbed some catch pots and set them here. And these might just wind up sitting in my living room or somewhere, so I thought just a little bit nicer, slightly nicer looking than you know, just an ugly old planting can. So that's the plan for that. There's a nice bright sunny south window in my living room, and I think these will do fine there for what they need. So I'm just gonna get the second one done, and then we can move over on to the fun stuff, which is the seeds. Okay, so 2 potatoes done. So right now the soil they're in is pretty dry. And when I get in the house, I'll just give them a little bit of a bottom watering to get the roots wanting to go down and just set them in a nice warm spot. They don't even totally need the sun right now. They just need somewhere nice and warm and a little bit of moisture to encourage them to start putting roots down and grow. So I'll just set them to the side right now and we'll get the seeds started. So like I said, I want to get my celery started because it takes quite a long time. I grow tango celery. I've had good luck with it. I'm honestly not sure if I've tried any other varieties, but I think I have a little tiny bit left in this Team T pack. I'm not sure. No, I guess I was just saving an empty pack, so I'll just get rid of that one. And I have some here from Bessie's, so I'll be using these seeds here. So celery is one that I find some people struggle with. So I just have, this is just peat moss. I have a little bit of perlite on it. I'm just gonna mix in, but I'm gonna leave it almost straight peat moss for the celery. Peat moss retains a lot of moisture, and one of the keys to growing celery is moisture. And I'm just gonna use this small pack of 4. You could start celery in just like a single cell, start several seeds in one little cell here and then just prick them out into individual pots later. But I'm just gonna go with this. This soil is nice and moist. So I'm just gently pushing the soil down with my fingers, and I'll do that for all the seed packs of the soil that I'm starting today, just to make sure that it doesn't sink down later when I'm watering. Helps keep the seeds at the right depth. So there, some nice, little bit looser soil or peat moss on top there. And now all I need to do is just take the celery seeds, and you just need to put them just lightly on top the surface. Celery needs light to germinate. You need lots of moisture and you need light. And they actually want, I think it's around 20 degrees Celsius for germination. Here's the celery seed. If you've ever had it in your seed cabinet, you know what it looks like, but that's what it looks like right there. So I'm just going to sprinkle a couple, like 3 or 4 on each of here, and I will thin it down to like 1 plant in each of those cells. And for my needs, that's plenty of celery. And this is just vermiculite. This is a fine vermiculite. And like I said, moisture is a huge factor with growing celery, so it doesn't really like to be covered with soil. Don't cover it with soil, but you can put a little bit of vermiculite on, and that will help hold the moisture right at the seed level and help them to germinate. Spritz with water just to settle them in. And when I take this celery in the house, I'm actually going to set it in its own tray that's going to have water in the bottom with a humidity cover over top. It could just be the clear lid from anything that you have kicking around your house, or a piece of cling film or something, just something that the light can get through. And I'll put it on my shelf with my grow lights, because it, like I said, it needs light to germinate. The plastic covering over top is going to help to hold that moisture in. And even if the soil is quite sopping wet, I find that's a good thing for celery, getting it going. Generally, that's a no-no with seed starting, but for celery, I feel like as long as it's not floating in water, you want it pretty wet. So that's what I do, and I get my celery going. Usually it takes about a week for for celery to sprout. If it takes a bit longer, that's fine. Don't panic. It could take a couple of weeks, and it'll take a long time to just really do much of anything. So like I said, if you wanted to just start it in a smaller container until it gets a little bit bigger and then prick it out and pot it up, that would be fine too, just to save space. But this is what I'm going with. 4 little things of celery. Checked off the list. Celery's done. I better get the label though. All right, celery, Tango celery. I wrote out 6 packs for the next things we're gonna do, and they're a little bit bigger because I think most of these plants can handle a bigger pot fairly soon. I don't know for sure. Like I said, I haven't actually grown delphinium or dahlia from seed, so maybe I should have gone with something smaller, but this is what I'm doing. So this is the Pacific Giants Mixed Delphinium. This is supposed to be perennial in zones 2 to 9. So once I get this going this year, I'll find a spot where it can just stay put in my yard, and it should come back for me every year. I love delphinium. It's one of those tall, kind of spiky plants, and it makes for a really nice plant in the garden. It says it can take sun to part sun, so that's always helpful. And it grows 4 to 6 feet tall, so it's a tall one and about 2 feet wide. But for now, we're just planting it. There must be small seeds because it says 1/8 of an inch deep. And otherwise, it doesn't say anything special about germination. So I'll just do it like I do most of my seeds in general. And if there's anything different, we'll find out, I guess. Okay, so just like the celery, I'm just gonna fill up these containers. Oh, I forgot. I wanted to add more perlite now that the celery's done. So this is just to help with better drainage. When you're starting seeds, you really, for most things other than like the celery I said is a real exception to the rule, I find that good drainage is very important. And you'll find a lot of seed starting mixes that you could purchase at the store will have a lot of perlite or sand or something mixed in them just to help the water to flow through. Now the advantage of perlite is it will actually help kind of regulate the moisture in it a little bit as well. And it also aerates, so it helps the roots to kind of get that oxygen without having actual pockets of air. Because if you have pockets of air, it'll kill the roots. But if you have nice oxygenated soil where all the water and the nutrients and that can move through, that's good to grow healthy seedlings. So got a pretty good amount in here now. So you can kind of see what I aim for with the amount of the white specks in comparison to the peat moss amount there. Hopefully that gives you an idea of kind of the distribution amount. There, just tamped it down just enough just to fill in the spaces here. Looks like they go a little more in some of them. Sometimes when you're reusing packs like this, they'll get kind of crunched in, and so you have to give a little extra push just to get the soil through and fill it in, or else you'll have this kind of weird pocket in there. And I'm just gonna kind of gently get the top filled in there. There we go. Okay, so let's see what these delphinium seeds look like. This is exciting. It's always fun to try something that you haven't tried before. I can't remember, these are Mackenzie seeds, so I probably just got them off the shelf at a store somewhere because I don't order them online. Well, they're not as small as I thought they would be for the coverage. So they must want a little bit of light too, is why they're not covered very deep. That's the seeds. Hopefully you get a good look there. So I usually like to put about 2 seeds per cell for things, so that'll be my goal here. And I'm just going to put them on the soil surface because I don't want to be buried very deep, so I didn't dib a hole for them at all. Just let them sit on top there. So I think I got 2 seeds in most, might be 3 in a couple. I'm just gonna give them a gentle pat to make sure they have good contact with the soil. They're big enough I know they won't get stuck to my fingers. I didn't do that with the celery because they're so small they get stuck to my finger and I wouldn't know. But with most seeds it's good to give them just a little pat into the soil. And then again, because they don't want to be covered very deep, I'm just going to go in with vermiculite on these. Okay, and we'll label those. So being that this is a mix, we'll get to find out what colors come. It doesn't actually say on the package, but the picture shows blues and purples and whites, and I think that's pretty much what delphiniums come in. I'm not sure I've ever seen them in any other color tones, so write in the comments if you know different than I do about that. Like I said, just trying these for the first time. Just trying to get a few more taller perennials in my garden. I'd like to have a few more back of the border taller perennials, so that's what I'm doing. So let's get this flowering cabbage done. I grew this last year. It grew beautifully. I really enjoyed these. I had them filling in some of my pots and things in the spring. It was really nice to have. I think I should have started these a little bit earlier, but we'll give them a go and see how they do. They're also great in the fall if you want to start them kind of mid to late summer and have them going in the fall. They like a cool weather, so that's what I'm growing them for, is kind of the cool weather seasons. They can take frost a little bit. They don't want to be like frozen, but a little bit of frost they can take. So it's just a nice one. When we have such a short season here in Saskatchewan, it's nice to have plants that can take that little bit of frost and keep on going and looking nice, just so you can have some of that spring feeling at the end of the long winter before it's really warm enough to have a lot of plants out. And this is another seed that doesn't want to be covered. It wants light to germinate. And they're little round. They're just like anything. If you ever planted cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, they look just like any of those seeds. And I'm going to put 2 in each cell. I've spaced them a little bit, so if they both germinate in each cell, then I'll probably just pull them apart and pot them into separate containers, just to get more plants that way. Most things when I'm planting several in a cell like this, I would just snip off the weaker plants and leave the strongest plant in there. With these, they're pretty good plants, I found, for being able to take a little bit more manipulation. So there, just like the rest. This is the crane mix, and this is seed from stems, if you're wondering where I got the seed for this. One more of these smaller trays and then we're into the big one. This is going to be for those dahlias, and like I said, I've never grown dahlias from seed before. I've grown lots of dahlias from tubers and saved my own tubers from year to year, but I've always wanted to try and grow them from seed. Maybe collect some of the seed, because they won't come true the next year from that seed that you collect. So you get whole new varieties, and they will form tubers. Usually, from what I hear, I will see in my short season if they'll get good enough tubers to save growing from seed. I thought that would be a fun thing to try. So what do they say here? Here's what it looks like. It's called Sunny Reggae. Quite a pretty mix of kind of orangey colors. This is a full sun plant, and it says it can take 7 to 20 days to germinate. So it says these plants will be 18 inches tall, 10 to 15 inches of spread, or how you're supposed to plant them. I've never saved seeds from my dahlias. I'm excited to try this. That's kind of what I expected them to look like, kind of like a zinnia seed. These don't want to be planted super deep either. Again, I'm putting 2 in each cell. That's just so if one doesn't germinate, you have a pretty good chance of getting at least one. And with these, I'll just snip off the weakest plant out of these. So there they are. Again, these say 1/8 of an inch deep. They're a bigger seed, and I'm pretty sure they don't need light to germinate. So I'm just going to barely cover them with soil, because to me that's 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just patting the soil on top to make sure they have good contact. And I will put a little bit of vermiculite, just because it does a good job of helping to control excess moisture and keep the moisture by the seeds while they're germinating. So I always think it's a good thing. Get a tag on that. And that seed, I believe, was Mackenzie seed as well. Let me get the pack. Yeah, that was Mackenzie seed as well. Okay, so there we go. Got 4 trays done. Got the potatoes done. Now I just need to get those petunias planted. So let's get that started. I just realized I didn't spray these, so I'm just going to give them a little spritz. So the petunias that I have are the Shockwave Pink Vein and Shockwave Deep Purple. So these are both petunias that'll do well here in my climate. They're a wave petunia. They have a pretty good spread to them. They're great for hanging baskets. They work in the ground, and they'll be good fillers in pots too. They mostly play well with other plants as long as other plants are pretty robust as well. So I find them to be a good type of petunia to have, and they stay looking pretty nice through the wind and the rain and the hot sun and everything else that Mother Nature throws at them. Good petunias to have. These are from TT Seeds. I was hoping to get my hands on some of these Blue Easy Wave from Mackenzie Seeds. Usually I can just find them on the seed racks. I have not found them yet. There's one more place that I want to look, but I might not have these this year because they do need to get started pretty soon if I'm going to have them, but I'll try and get my hands on. So if I do, I'll just be planting some of those up another day. But today we'll be doing the Shockwaves. We'll just get started with these, and if I find the others later on, I'll just add them in later on. So I'm going to bring you down so you can see what I'm doing with petunias, because I get questions about them a lot. People seem to have trouble with this, and I'm not sure what it is. I think the more times I show it, maybe something will click for somebody that didn't in the last video. So bring you down, let's get started. So there's only supposed to be about 20 seeds for each variety here. There's probably going to be a few more than that. When you're buying petunias, if you've had trouble with them in the past, buy petunias that are with pelleted seed, and I'll show you that in a minute because that's what these are. You can grow it. It can be grown from not pelleted seed, and I have done it in the past. I've saved my own seed in the past, but the pelleted seed will give you the best chances, but it needs to be fresh seed. Like one year I ordered late summer, early fall, I ordered petunia seed for the next year, and it did not work out for me. It was several varieties, which is unfortunate because petunia seed isn't exactly inexpensive, but I think it was just too old. So that's what I get out of that. So if you've had trouble in the past, make sure you're ordering fresh seed in the spring to give you the best chances, and pelleted seed. So I like to do my petunias in their own trays because they have kind of special growing requirements at the seedling stage. So let me get this finished filling, and then I'll go over that as I plant the seeds. Okay, so I wanted to get these trays set up just very nicely for these because petunia seed has, like I said, some special requirements. I'm just going to rip the package because I am not using this again. And there's the seed in the vial. So let me pull it out for you so you can see it. So careful, there's some right in the thing there. Like I said, it's pelleted seed. There's supposed to be 20 in here. And it always looks like so few, but it'll be at least 20, I'm sure. Unless I dumped some on the floor because I kind of opened that up crazy. Now you could take like a toothpick or something to help you pick these up, and you just want to set them on the soil surface. You do not want to bury your petunia seed at all. Petunia seed is very, very fine, like dust, and that's why they pellet it. It makes it just so much easier to handle. Get it in here. Not sure what happened to that one. Put another one in there. So I'm trying to get them in the center of the cell pack. But like I said, so they have special requirements, and the number one requirement is just like I think almost everything else that we planted. Today they need light to germinate, but they have specific requirements after that. So germination, you want them to be around 24 degrees Celsius to get that germination. Now I find a warm room anywhere from like 22 to 26 will work. You don't have to be exactly 24. Don't stress that too much. You need to make sure you're misting them just lightly pretty much every day to help break down that seed coat, because sometimes these pelleted seeds, the coating on them just doesn't break down that well. and giving them a little misting every day will help with that. So what did I get there? 6, 18, 19, and I think I put 2 in there. So there was 20. I couldn't see where the one went, so I put another one in there. So I'm gonna put this tag like this, and I'll maybe turn this one around. Okay, so here's the deep purple. And there they are, they look exactly the same. So after you've had them at that warm temperature and they've germinated, and I have a humidity dome on top of them while they're doing that, keep that humidity up, help break that seed coat down. Then you need to take them somewhere that is 12 Celsius. And again, I don't have anywhere that's perfectly 12 Celsius. So mine are probably around that 15 to 20 Celsius range. And they need the light. So they need light to germinate, and they need the light on them, obviously, after they've germinated, but they need a cool space. And that can be a little bit tricky to maintain a cool area and have them under nice bright light. But the closest you can get to that cool temperature and the bright light will give you the nicest petunias and the best growth later on. Now, not everybody will grow them like that. Some people just keep them with all the other seedlings somewhere warmer. And you will still get petunia plants, but they might not be as strong and robust and set as many branches and buds. But I think the biggest thing people have trouble with is germination. Just set them on top of the soil. They need nice, really bright light to germinate, and spritz them like pretty much every day. You don't want to get them so wet that they're molding and sopping wet. You just want to give them a light spritz every day just to get that seed coat breaking down. And you don't need the whole cell wet while they're germinating. You just need that very top bit damp. So there, that's my end point. So I got 18, 19, 20, 22 out of that. Yeah, that's usually I'll get around 22 from these seed companies. You know, if they said 20, there's usually, you know, a couple extras. So I don't know what happened there. I did kind of open that first one a little crazy, or maybe that's just all there was. So if I find more of the wave, easy purple, whatever it's called, the purple easy wave, I will fill in the rest of the tray with that. So just like with the other seeds that need light, I'll put some vermiculite on, but I'm going to make it a very fine sprinkling of vermiculite. Now normally with seed that needs light, you can go a little heavier, but petunias can be a little extra fussy. Okay, so that's pretty good. I took an hour and I got some planting done, which will make me feel better going into the rest of my week. Hopefully you get some planting done this week too. So just to be super, super clear, I'm out here planting them in my greenhouse, but this is Saskatchewan. We're still getting really cold at night, -15 to -25 on any given night. So these are not staying here. All of these seedlings are going into my house where it's nice and cozy and warm for them, or all these little seed trays. They will, like I said, be in my grow room, except the potatoes, probably just put in a south window. And the petunias will stay under that bright light in a warm room until they have germinated. And once they've germinated, I'll take the cover off the tray, that humidity dome. They'll all have humidity dome except the potatoes. Take the humidity domes off once germination has occurred on all of them, and let them have air circulation. The petunias I'm actually going to take down to my basement where it's a little bit cooler, and I'll have grow lights just sitting on them, and they're just going to stay at these tiny, tiny little plant seedling size things for so long that I'm going to question whether I did it right, even though I do this every year. And no, they're just going to sit like that, like for, I think it's like a month, 6 weeks, something like that. They just stay, just minuscule. And then all of a sudden, it's like they've built up this great root system, and petunias just take off and grow. But until that, they just sit there. So don't panic if that's happening with your petunias. And give them a good couple of weeks to germinate. Usually, you know, a week is all they need, but sometimes they need a bit longer. I don't know. They're just kind of little little fussier plants, but they do grow and they do well. And once they grow, they're so nice out in the landscape and the garden. That's my advice for you. Just spritz them, break down that seed coat, use pelleted seed. Make sure you have bright light, a warm space to get them germinated. Keep the humidity around them because that'll help break down that seed coat. Not too much water that they're sopping wet because that'll rot them. The celery, wet. It wants to be wet. It wants to be wet germinating. It wants to be wet growing. Celery is it's pretty much just water, right? So it wants to be wet. The delphinium and the dahlia, I've never grown from seed before, as I said, but I think they're just pretty much standard process, except they both seem like they're not planted very deep, so light to germinate is probably a good thing with them. What else did I do? Oh, the flowering cabbage. Yep, it needs light to germinate. Lots of things that need light to germinate in this. That wasn't on purpose, but this week is the light to germinate week, I guess. And the potatoes, like I said, once the sprouts start to pop up out of the soil, I'll just keep covering them up as they grow. And once it's warm enough to put them outside, I will actually plant them out into bigger pots in my greenhouse probably, or maybe out into my garden if things have really warmed up this spring for me. So I hope you're having a good day and getting some seeds planted yourself, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.